one of the legendary sports media members across the state of Arkansas from Pig Trail Nation. He probably doesn't like us putting it in those terms, but you got to be honest sometimes. Mike, appreciate you coming on halftime today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Are there really any legends in the media in this state? Orville was a legend. I don't know about anybody else.
Well, just give it a couple of years. They'll start naming press boxes after you, too. If they offered to name a press box after you somewhere, like Orville Henry, would you take that?
Maybe if it was baseball, because I like going to Bomb Walker and, it's cool, but I don't know. It's kind of silly, really.
They'd have to name the area that you stand shooting highlights, because I know you kind of have to be there behind home plate shooting the highlights there, so you'd have to have like a little ridge named after you there.
That's a new thing. We had Jason with us for many years. He sort of ran things at our operation there, and he liked to shoot. So I didn't have to shoot much, but he's gone now, and I've been shooting a lot more. I think I was on my feet for about 6 hours in that doubleheader, and at my age, my knees, my feet, I felt it when I went home that night.
Is there any exercises you could recommend to media members who are sore from standing up too much? Because my baseball partner, Bubba Carpenter, he never sits down. He never sits down, Mike, but he still has a little athleticism to him. I don't know if he ever lost that. But, are there any stretches I'd need to do from standing up too much? Because my back's been bothering me.
I just do knee bends, try to do the ankle thing with your ankle, raise yourself up, on your toes. I don't know if that helps. I mean, here's the thing. You're probably going to be fine till you hit somewhere around 70. I told somebody a few years ago, hey, there's a buddy that I grew up with. I said, I don't feel any different, really, than I did. Maybe if I had to go out and run, I would notice the difference. But in the last 3 or 4 years, you get up about 70, things start happening, and you just don't have the stamina that you once had.
I feel that way about 45, so give me another few years, and maybe we'll see what's going on. All right, let's get to some of the stuff going on with Razorback sports now. Now, you made a point on your most recent Ask Mike that I hear so often when it comes to the SEC baseball tournament, which is it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter at all. And I think for this year's Arkansas basketball team, I think you make a very good point. Now, it's not the case every year because a couple of victories might move your seat up in some cases. I feel like for Arkansas and for almost every other team that's got the double bye in the SEC tournament, like the regular season right now should stand for itself. And I think the way that Arkansas has performed, certainly in the last 16 games, like that should stand for itself for the committee. Is that where you're coming from?
I think if they end up being one and done, I assume they're going to play LSU. If they lose that game, they're projected 4 seed right now. They drop to a 5. What's the difference there? The problem that you always have in the NCAA basketball tournament is even when the field is set and you can look at all those names and all the seedings, you don't really know until you start playing games how it's going to play out, because every year there are teams that overachieve, teams that underachieve. There are upsets, especially in the first round. So even if you get in a good position, what you think is a good position, a good bracket, a good spot in a bracket, that doesn't mean anything until it happens. So I don't see the difference between a 4 seed and a 5 seed mattering much. It might in retrospect, but there's no way to know that now. Here's the thing that Dave Van Horn always talked about is you go wear yourself out in the SEC baseball tournament when you maybe got a regional coming up that next week, and you got to have arms rested and all that. Why would you do that? Well, basketball is a little bit the same way. I mean, they have this week to rest up, which is good. That's the benefit of making the quarterfinals automatically. And if they go one and done, the same thing happened next week. So they'll have fresh legs.
That is true. I mean, when you've had the regular season that Arkansas has had, you've kind of cemented yourself. I think that there's nothing they can really do, especially if it's the one and done against LSU. I think they're going to stay at the 4, but until you know the matchups, it's all up in the air. And even then, that's why it's called March Madness for a reason. But Mike, how concerned are you, and do you think people should be with Audie Stoney not playing on Saturday? Probably not going to play in the SEC tournament, I guess, unless they go on a run and make it to Sunday, or, past that. How worrisome should people be about him?
I would be worried if he's not available for the NCAA tournament. That's what I'd be looking at, and I'm sure that's what's on Musselman's mind. Again, I mean, we just talked about it. There's this thing with LSU. They're gunning for Arkansas. They're mad. They felt like they blew the game. It's hard to beat somebody 3 times in the season. Fans get caught up in this, and it means probably more to them. I'm not saying you could never get players to say publicly, we don't want to win this game, we don't care, whatever. But if you've got it running through your head and you understand how this thing works, I just don't see that they're sitting there with the same sort of emphasis that LSU has. LSU has stuff to prove. I mean, they've had a very disappointing season, and Arkansas is a part of that. To lose to them twice, to lose to them 3 times would be terrible for them and would hurt them, moving forward. So they got more incentive than Arkansas does, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And with Tony being out, especially for the first game on Friday, and hopefully no more past that. But if, let's say, they had to go into the NCAA tournament without him in that first round, can they make up the productivity with KK and with Jackson? Like I feel like they tried to on Saturday, and with playing, Devo a little bit more. Can they make up the productivity, especially when KK and Jackson have played like less than 10 minutes combined between the two of them in a month?
It's maybe. What we've seen from this team, we've seen games where, Note went to the bench and we thought there's no way that overtime game, I think it was A&M, it's been so long ago, you think there's no way you can win this thing in overtime without him at all. He was on the bench for large stretches of other parts of games, and they figured out a way to do it. So, maybe they could do it, but you sure don't want to have to. I just hope he's okay, in the next few days. That's what you have to hope for.
You mentioned it. You think LSU's gunning for Arkansas, and they certainly are because it's right there on their schedule. If if they if they win their first game, they get the Razorbacks, and they want them badly. But man, I feel the same about Auburn. I think Kentucky does too, and you don't play them unless you win at least a game or 2 in the tournament if you're Arkansas. But I mean, I'm reading things from Auburn. They felt quote unquote disrespected by the Razorbacks and Razorback fans. Calipari's talked about how Arkansas got some of their toughest opponents at home this year. Tennessee already got their crack at the Razorbacks after losing at home. I just have a sense that even though Auburn won the league in the regular season, I feel like they're gunning for Arkansas right now, too.
I think a little bit of what's going on there is the knowledge by those players and even their coaches. We've now seen Bud Walton the way it always could be, the way it used to be. And I sat here all through 2005, 10, 15, arguing with people who said they should take some of the seats out and make it cozier, blah, blah, blah. And I kept telling them the right coach is going to come in here eventually, and you're going to fill that place up, and it's going to be like no other arena in the SEC. Our Nick Petriccioni was at the Tennessee game. He came back and told me flat out, and he's not a guy that would exaggerate, 21,000 in there in Thompson Bowling, it's still not Bud Walton. And I think a lot of those coaches and those athletes, they came in and they got a dose of that, and they know they don't have that at their place. So there's some sniping going on. Good. Let them do it. If Musk keeps this thing going, I can really see it going back to Nolan levels. Those of us who remember what that was like, that early 90s to 95 run, was heady stuff. It was fabulous, and I just hope we're headed back in that direction.
Do you think this is a team that they haven't played many neutral site games? Maybe you'd say playing in Tulsa was neutral. But maybe I think in Kansas City, that's about it. This team feeds off the energy at Bud Walton. That's obvious. They are not really poorly affected on the road too often. When it's happened, they've bounced back and they've come from behind and made it a tight game, even in losses. Neutral site games, tournament site games, man, that's a little bit different. Is that anything you think could affect this team at all?
Possibly, because one of the things that if you travel and cover teams in the NCAA tournament, there is this weird thing that happens if you follow them all year long, in that you've gone to road games, you've gone to home games, and you see the atmosphere at other places and your place, and then you get to the NCAA, and a lot of times it's a neutral atmosphere. I mean, really neutral.
Like quiet.
You get to a place where people have bought those tickets locally because it's kind of promoted as an event there, so they get corporate tickets, and then they distribute them, and people are going in there and just sort of munching on their popcorn and deciding who they like. A lot of times it takes a group of fans in an arena about half of the first quarter to decide who they want to pull for. And it's usually the underdog, a team they perceive as an underdog. And then they'll get behind that team. But it's not like, you're right, it's not like what you're used to. And it's hard to say how that would affect players, because I've seen atmospheres that were completely dead. And you're sitting there thinking, people are watching this on home and at home, and they can jack the audio up, and everybody thinks it's, a typical basketball environment, and it's not.
No, it's definitely not. It's one of those situations where you've got to bring your own guts, bring your own type of motivation. And Mike, with the coaches and the AP awards coming out, obviously with the coaches, Jalen and JD are on that 9-man first team. And this is the first time since Scotty and Corliss were on the first team ballot together. The two Arkansas players have made that list together. Where do you think JD and Jalen will kind of rank as far as best tandem in Arkansas history, now that they've got that accolation to add to the list of things that they've done together in these past 2 seasons?
I think we still have to see how the season plays out. If they go deep into the tournament, they'll be right up there. My thinking on this goes all the way to Moncrief, Delph, and Brewer, the original Brewer. I mean, then you think about all these great players. But to me, I've never had an interest in comparing them. I just put them all up there in kind of I don't want a best or a second best or whatever. They're just all up there. And there's a group of them in my head, and these guys are right there on the edge of that because of what they've done, the way they've fought, the way this team has come back from being 0-3. And mainly, what I like about all of these guys, including the transfers, is they have given the people, they've given Razorback fans their basketball program back. This program was broken. It was even broken before Musk got here. There might have been some decent years, but if you remember what it was broken. And he's, in a very short period of time, given them their program back. He's filled that arena up. He's given Hunter Yurachek second thoughts, hopefully, about reducing the number of seats in there. I hope he doesn't do that, because we now see what that place is like. Let Auburn have its little jungle of 8,000. Go away. Leave us alone. Come here and tell us about a jungle. We've got the whole continent. We got the whole African continent here, not just a little jungle. A whole jungle on a whole continent. This is a big place.
I really like how you put it there, too, because Auburn bragging about their atmosphere and all that. It was like, I could put 6 people in a closet and it's going to be really loud. It's kind of the same thing. So, and Bud Walton certainly no closet, that's for sure.
Look at all the schools that are doing that. It's become trendy. Texas is moving out of their 16,000-seat arena to go to one that's 10,000. Baylor's getting rid of a 9,000 arena to go to a 7,000-seat arena because they've all been convinced that cozy is the new way to go. I don't know. I don't like it.
They'll say ticket demand. We'll be like, well, if you're really, really good, the demand for tickets ought to be there, too. Hey, Mike, we got to run.
It might be over this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pros and college hoops. For all the latest odds, totals, player performance props, to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline is the #1 spot for all your sports betting needs. Head over to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Use our promo code BELIEVE to get started. That's promo code BLEAV. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage, is the best in the business. From sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, BetOnline is your #1 online wagering destination. BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play your favorite games. BetOnline, where the game starts.